So, friends, welcome to lecture series on political ideology. We have been talking about socialism. The first class, we had a general introduction. The second class, we used to talk about the fundamental assumptions of a socialist. Friends, today, this evening lecture is about the question of how to achieve socialism. So the title of this lecture is Roads to Socialism. Roads to Socialism. That means among the socialists, there are differences of opinion about how a socialist society can be created. So in the beginning lecture, I told you that socialist traditions are divided on two important questions. One is the goals of socialism, and second is the means of socialism. The goals of socialism and the means of socialism. And friends, there is differences, a fundamental differences among socialists regarding the goals of socialism and the means of socialism. And one group, we can say, the fundamentalist socialism. The fundamentalist socialism. Other one is the revisionist socialism. So, how to achieve socialist goals? This question is addressed by different ways by different schools of socialism, but we can classify them into fundamentalist or orthodox schools of socialism, and revisionist socialism. And this lecture I will tell you about two important schools of socialism. One is revolutionary socialism. The second is evolutionary socialism. And friends, let us examine revolutionary socialism. Friends, many early socialists believed that capitalist system can be replaced only by revolution. So such socialists were said to be revolutionary socialist. They justified violence. And they have a reason for adopting violent methods towards socialist goals. And they argued violence is inevitable for socialism. An early advocate of revolutionary socialism was Blanqui, August Blanqui, Augusteblanqui, August Blanqui. He was a French socialist. One second. Friends, sorry for the disturbance. Sorry. Some family emergency. Sorry. Friends, what did I tell you? I forgot my point.
Blanqui was French socialist.
Auguste French socialist.
Okay. So the first one, the earliest advocate of revolutionary socialism was Auguste Blanqui, a French socialist, and he advocated that a small band of dedicated conspirators are necessary for organizing a revolution in capitalist societies. So these revolutionaries will lead the revolution. So they are conspirators. They should be few in number. So this idea was advocated by Auguste Blanqui in the 17th century. Sorry, not 17th century, in the 19th century. And another group of writers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they too believed revolution is inevitable. And they argued for a proletarian revolution. A proletarian revolution. So what is proletarian revolution? It's a type of revolution in which a class conscious working class men rise up and overthrow capitalism. But friends, we know the first overthrow of capitalism took place only in the 20th century. These ideas were propagated in the 19th century. But socialist revolution, I mean a revolutionary type of socialism, appeared only in 1917. You know where it was. It was in Russia, led by Lenin and Bolsheviks, a group of small band of conspirators. Bolsheviks led by and also by Lenin, who seized power in Russia. And they seized power not through a revolution. It was not through a revolution, but it was a coup d'etat. A coup d'etat. You may refer the spelling and the meaning of coup d'etat on Google. It was not a popular insurrection or popular upsurge. It was not such a mass movement against capitalism. It was rather a, armed rebellion of organized militia. But anyway, the Bolshevik model of revolution influenced a generation of socialists across the world. And many people in different parts of the world became socialist revolutionaries, inspired by Bolshevik model of revolutionary activities. And friends, in the 19th century, the question is, why in the 19th century socialists justified violence? Why socialists justified violence? And we know in India, violence was justified by Naxals. A Naxalbari movement took place in India in the year 1969 in the Naxalbari district of West Bengal. And now in India, there is a Red Army movement called Maoism. They also justify violence. The point is, why socialists, not all socialists, some socialists, but they are a huge in number. Why socialists justify violence? There is a reason, friends. There is a specific reason. Let us understand the reason why they justify violence. Friends, in the beginning of industrialization, capitalism generated grave injustices. Working class men in the early beginning of industrial civilization was suffering from grinding poverty. Their labor was purchased by capitalists at low price. And also they faced unemployment. And early socialists believed capitalism as a naked oppression and exploitation. Therefore, friends, the German Marxist Karl Marx, who shaped his Marxist ideas in Germany, all of a sudden migrated to England because he was thinking that in England, where industrialism attained its maturity, working class is suffering. And Marx and Engels wrote an 1848 book, Communist Manifesto. And in the beginning line of Communist Manifesto is a famous sentence. And they said in that line beautifully, a specter is haunting Europe. The specter of communism. And friends, Karl Marx and Engels were writing these lines in Communist Manifesto in the year 1848 within the general background that early phase of industrial capitalism tortured working class men. So Marx was believing that working class men will no longer bear up with exploitation of capitalism. Because exploitation reached its pinnacle. So Marx expected very soon the working class men will organize. So Marx anticipated that a leader, a revolutionary leader is required. That's why he went to Britain to lead the working class men. And Marx also believed working classes had few alternatives. And working class men were excluded from political life. They were not enjoying political rights. They did not enjoy voting rights. So their situation was very pathetic. So Marxists believe that political power reflects class interest. Political power reflects class interest. That means the state is a bourgeois state. British state is a bourgeois state. We think that British state align with working class men. It supports working class men. But Marx anticipated that the bourgeois state of Britain will support the capitalist. So, early socialists believed political reform is pointless. Gradual change is pointless. Voting right is pointless. It's an illusion. Voting right is an illusion. Rather, British working class require a proletarian consciousness, that they should feel that we are exploited by a capital system. Until and unless you are not fighting it down, capitalism will rob your heart. So this working class consciousness is required. This is what the position of early socialists in the beginning of 19th century. And friends, in the second half of the 20th century, faith in revolution was almost evident in all countries of the developing world. Most countries in the developing world endorsed revolution as a source of liberation. So in post 1945 period, when World War II ended, national liberation movement embraced armed struggle. National liberation movement embraced armed struggle. So in India, you will see there were group of people who stood for armed struggle against Britain. So you may know Bhagat Singh, you may know Bose, what was his name? Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose. They were armed revolutionaries against Britain. And many part of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, liberation struggles endorsed violence. So this was inspired by early socialists. The early socialists believed violence is the road to egalitarian society. And you can see in Asia, in 1949, China became a revolutionary socialist. Mao Zedong organized a Chinese revolution. He organized a long military campaign against Japan, Imperial Japan. And the Kuomintang. And in Vietnam, in 1975, national unity was achieved by socialists. There were two Vietnam, North Vietnam and South Vietnam. South was capitalist, and North was communist. I mean socialist. So they were united. And they were united, socialists were united against France, later against USA in 1975. And friends, in Argentina, a revolutionary icon was born. You may remember Che Guevara. He became an icon of revolutionary activities in the entire Latin American part of the world. He led guerrilla forces in various parts of Latin America. Che Guevara. And he commanded troops during Cuban Revolution of 1959, which resulted in the overthrow of American imposed government in Cuba, and Fidel Castro became the head of the state. Similar revolutions took place in Africa. For example, Algeria gained independence from France through revolutionary activities. So friends, violence had many political significance for socialism to grow all over the world. Revolution had the advantage. It had an advantage. Revolution allowed, or violence allowed, the remnants of the old order, to be overthrown all of a sudden, and a new social system to be constructed. So it helped socialists to overthrow an old social system and construct a new social system immediately. That's why socialists embraced violence. So the Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot in Cambodia, Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot in Cambodia, seized the power, and he declared the year 1975 as the year zero. The year 1975 was declared as year zero. So capitalism could be abolished, and a qualitatively different socialist society established in its place through revolutionary activities. So that's why Pol Pot himself, led Khmer Rouge and established power in 1975 and declared the year as year zero. And socialism in revolutionary context took shape in the form of state collectivization. State collectivization. I have told you that word in the last lecture. State collectivization. State collectivization is based on Soviet model. State collectivization is based on Soviet model. But friends, this revolutionary road to socialism also resulted in dictatorship. I remember I have told you Pol Pot killed almost 1 million people. Mao Zedong killed so many millions of people. Stalin killed so many millions of people. That means they say socialism will create an egalitarian society, but to create such an egalitarian society, look at the number of the people they have killed in the name of revolutionary activities. Mao famously said, Power resides in the barrel of a gun. So he had summed up the entire revolutionary philosophy of socialism into one sentence. Power resides in the barrel of a gun. So revolutionary parties typically adopted military style structure. So Mao adopted a military style structure. Fidel Castro adopted a military style structure. Che Guevara adopted the same thing. Or Stalin adopted the same thing. Most social societies who believed in revolutionary socialism adopted a military structure. But friends, 1989 and 1991 was a period of pessimism among socialists because Soviet Union ended, and it proved one fact, that violence is not the real road to socialism. So it compelled many socialists to rethink. And also, through 1991, many socialist revolutionaries converted into constitutional democracies. And many early revolutionary socialists adopted parliamentary path. And now in the world, there are only two groups in the entire world who can be said to be revolutionary socialists. One is Maoist in Nepal, are revolutionary. Other one is Maoist insurgency in Peru, are revolutionary. And no other part of the world there exists the revolutionary brand of socialism. Only in Nepal, the Maoist in Nepal and Maoist insurgency in Peru are said to be, revolutionary socialism. But friends, there is another brand of socialism which now we are going to talk about. What is that? It is the evolutionary brand of socialism. Evolutionary brand of socialism. Evolutionary brand of socialism. Friends, in the 19th century itself, socialist enthusiasm for revolt and violence had also started to decline. Not in the developing world, but in the developed world. In the developing world, in the 20th century, we can see revolutionary band of socialism existed. But since the 19th century itself, developed countries witnessed the decline of revolutionary band of socialism. Why? Why in the developed world socialism became mild, whereas in developing world it became aggressive? The reason is that by the later phase of 19th century, we will see that in the Western world or in the developed world, capitalism was humanized. By late 19th century, urban working class in Europe lost its revolutionary character. And urban working classes were gradually integrated into society. Wages increased, living standards increased. A range of social institutions were instituted for the support of working class in Europe, broadly in developed countries. You can see working men's club emerged, trade unions emerged, political parties for the working class men emerged. And these clubs protected the interest of working class men. So working class men began to feel, oh, I am belonging to this society. I am belonging to this structure. I will get something from this structure. So this type of an attachment, a mental attachment towards capitalism began to develop among the proletarian class itself. I mean, the working class itself. Proletarian is a word used by Karl Marx. So political democracy gradually advanced in the developed world. And franchises were extended. Franchisee means voting rights. So working class men began to get voting rights. By the end of World War I, a majority of Western states in the developed world introduced universal adult suffrage. And women also got voting rights. So all these factors, we can see capitalism got a human face by the beginning of 20th century. And by the late 19th century and in the beginning of 20th century, in the Western world, in the developed world, and in their societies, capitalism got a human face. So socialists in such societies dropped their inclination towards violence. And you will see in 1884, Fabian Society was formed in Britain, Fabian Society. And Fabian Society propagated Fabian Socialism in the UK. So the Fabians were led by two very important activists, Beatrice Webb and Sidney Webb. And the Fabian clubs had many intellectuals in Britain, including George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells, two doyens of modern world, intellectuals of the modern world. Bernard Shaw was a member of Fabian Society and H.G. Wells was a member of the Fabian Society. The Fabian was adopted from Roman general Fabius Maximus, who was a Roman general, who was famous for his patience, which he had deployed against Hannibal's invading army. So he waited patiently to defeat Hannibal. So it was, inspired the Fabians to adopt the name Fabians from Roman general Fabius Maximus. So, in the view of Fabian socialist, socialism would develop naturally, peacefully, out of liberal capitalism. And socialism is possible through political action and education. So, political action is possible through a socialist party. You form a socialist party for political action. So, Fabians therefore adopted liberal theories, accepted liberal theories of state. Fabians accepted liberal theories of state because Fabian socialists never believed that state is a bourgeois institution. Rather, they believe state is neutral in between capital and the working class. Fabians believe state is a neutral entity that stand in between capital and the working class, and they believe that state will never take a biased stance in favor of capitalism. So the Fabians believed that the elite groups in society, the politicians, the civil servants, the scientists, the academics, needs to be converted to socialism through education. You educate these elites and give them some sense of socialist ideas about equality, about egalitarianism. So they wanted to permeate into all social spheres through education. So socialism should permeate into society through a gradual process. So that's why Fabians believed in gradualism, gradual change. So Fabians influenced German socialism, German Socialist Democratic Party, or SDP, German Socialist Democratic Party. It was formed in 1875. And Fabian Society was founded in 1884. And the Fabians influenced the formation of German Socialist Democratic Party, or otherwise called SDP, in the year 1875. And SDP all of a sudden became the largest socialist party in the entire Europe. And in 1912, it became the largest party in German Reichstag, German parliament. Became the largest party in German parliament. Of course, it is committed to a Marxist ideology. German Socialist Democratic Party, or SDP, is committed to Marxist ideology. But in practice, it adopted a reformist approach. It was not an orthodox Marxist party. It was not a fundamentalist socialist party. It reformed itself. This party was influenced by the writings of Ferdinand Lassalle. And Lassalle believed that extension of political democracy, that you give voting rights to working class and more political, let the working class have more political institutions and other social associations, their conditions will improve. He believed political democracy will serve the interest of working class. And friends, Edward Bernstein, he developed a new brand of socialism called evolutionary socialism. And the evolutionary socialism of Edward Bernstein was a parallel to Fabian socialism, who believed in gradualism. Fabians believed in gradualism, gradual change. Liberal state will change, capitalism will change gradually, and it will give room to the working class. That is what Fabians believed. So based on their ideology, Edward Bernstein also proposed a similar notion called evolutionary socialism. He believed Marxist call for revolution is redundant. Marxist call for revolution is redundant. Means it is, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a wrong idea. Working class should use ballot box, not revolution, not gun, not, sword, not violence. Working class should use ballot box. Working class should not use militancy. So Bernstein proposed this idea. And friends, based on this Fabian socialism of UK, the German Socialist Democratic Party of Germany, or the evolutionary socialism of Edward Bernstein, so their ideas helped the 19th century European societies to create a type of socialism which was different from the orthodox branches of socialism, like Marxism or communism or Maoism or Leninism. So these types of socialism are all militant socialism or revolutionary socialism. They find violence as the route to socialist society. But this Fabian type, this German Social Democratic Party type, or the Edward Bernstein type socialism influenced European socialists generally, and new types of political parties emerged in Europe by 19th century. You will see that Australian Labour Party was founded in 1891. Australian Labour Party was founded in 1891. In UK Labour Party, 1900. Italian Socialist Party, 1892. 1892. And the French Socialist Party, 1905. And Spain, Italy, and French Communist parties, these parties became more, more evolutionary. Friends, we can say that in the end, this type of socialist parties were later called Euro-communist. That is, Euro-communism is a type of socialism which believes that socialist society can be founded through democratic routes, through parliamentary approaches, rather than revolt. But friends, now there is a question. Was gradualism inevitable? Was gradualism inevitable? Or the Fabian idea that inevitability of gradualism, whether it is a right idea? And friends, you will see that democratic socialism is founded on a contradiction. It is founded on a contradiction. Why? Because socialism is basically an ideology against capitalism. But what happened in Europe? In Europe, socialist parties have watered down. They have watered down socialist principles. They watered down the ideological fundamentals of socialism. That's why J.K. Galbraith, a writer, J.K. Galbraith, a writer, in his book, The Culture of Contentment, argued that if socialist parties are not getting support from working class, you can also look for other classes. That's called the culture of contentment. So this culture of contentment affected socialism in Europe. Friends, you got a class now? English class?
Yes, sir.
5 o'clock? Right, Nandana? Is it 5 o'clock?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay. So let us stop it now. Do you want to